welcome to In the Now with Jim Swilley. We're already in a conversation about losing my religion. We were just talking about the Garden of Eden, the literalness of the Scripture. You had brought up something about Noah's Ark, which I think is really interesting. Did any of y'all see that movie that came out a few months ago about it? Actually, I thought it was really good, and I don't know why Christians got so mad about it, but anyway, even about the literalness of the Noah story, if that literally happened, then there were only, if you're going to take that scripture literally, the only survivors were Noah and his family, which would mean they were, you'd have to assume, were Hebrew. Right. So then where did Africans come from? Where did Asians come from? Probably what did happen is there probably was a great flood in antiquity that became part of the lore, and it was incorporated into the theology. What people miss when they obsess over it, where there are actually two pigs and two aardvarks and two zebras, you're missing the point. The point is that one man can save the world. That's what that was about. That he comes to Noah and he says, I'm going to destroy it, but you can save it. Without the Noah story, there's no Gandhi, there's no Martin Luther King, there's no Rosa Parks. That is not about 2 by 2, literally. That's about saying if everything is wiped out, including the whole world as you know it, you have it within you to save it. You can change it. And that's what he meant when he said Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
Yeah, they miss the message because they're hung up on the literalness of it, and they completely miss what it means. And I love the movie, by the way, Noah, that came out. I thought it was very well done. And even fundamentalists have problems with the movie because they, a lot of problems. But one of them was they referred to God as the creator rather than God.
Why was that controversial? Don't Christians believe that God's the creator? That was a big.
That's really an issue in school. Are mad.
It's unbelievable.
My thing that I couldn't get was the fact that when someone says it didn't line up to what I believe was true, I want to say, were you there? Do you really know what happened?
And does the Left Behind series line up? I mean, you took a lot of license with that. That's just amazing to me.
No, I wanted to tweet. I wanted it biblically accurate. I want Noah to have relations with his son.
You don't really
want to get
You
literal.
don't really want to dig into that Noah
Word by
story.
word.
There's some major dysfunction going on in that film.
Noah's an alcoholic.
You tell people some things that are in the Bible, and they're like, "That's not in there." They get scared, and you're like, "No, go read it."
Yeah.
You have to know how to rightly divide it.
I find typically the people who yell the loudest about the Bible know the least about it.
That's true.
Because they're protecting an image, they're protecting, what they think it means. There's a word that I find very interesting. It's the word bibliolatry, and it means making an idol out of a written document. And I think we're dealing with that. I have lost a lot of my bibliolatry, but I love the scriptures. I love the eternalness of it.
I think it's sort of like the game Telephone, where you tell one thing and it goes around in a circle, and then by the time it gets to the end, it's completely different. And I think there probably was a man named Noah. There probably was a boat, and there probably was a flood, and he probably had some animals. But that doesn't mean he was the only person in the entire thing. It's like that, maybe in their part of the world, there probably was some element of truth to that. And we sometimes we hang on to the literalness and think that God's that small.
Why is that? Are people so afraid that if you expose one thing that none of it's going to be true? Is that what is the whole Bible concept that fragile?
I think it goes back to the idea. Doesn't go back, but the idea was Jesus in a sexual, emotional relationship with somebody, right? And that's caused huge controversy.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
And I think it goes back to the same thing: is it doesn't really matter.
But that's when you really have a relationship with Christ.
First, you're talking about the Da Vinci Code. First of all, it's fiction. Secondly, it doesn't matter.
No, I wasn't talking about just the Da Vinci Code. I mean, there's a lot of people who believe that Martha and Jesus.
Well, for me, when you really have a relationship, I love Jesus. I love God. I worship on a daily basis. I love Scripture. But when you see it in a more mature way, and you can understand that maybe Noah wasn't all the way literal, maybe all this, maybe Jesus, I don't know if Jesus had a relationship or not. It doesn't matter. He's still Jesus to me. So when you can get in that perception, God becomes so much more relevant.
Well, that's the question then. Why? What's all the fear about then?
It's fear-based. I think there's a bipolarness of God that we have been taught. And that is, if I believe anything outside of what this word means, and I once about to say, then what is this word that you're studying? It's a word that's been translated over and over and over again. And yet it's plain to me that we're so strong-headed when it deals with saying we're led by the Spirit of God, but we don't believe we're led by the Spirit of God.
Right.
Either I'm led by the Spirit or I'm led by the book.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, going back to like worshiping the Bible, a lot of people have a reverence and a worship for the Bible that prevents them from actually thinking about and discussing it beyond what their religion details this is.
Yeah.
And for them, it's heretical that it might mean something more or different than the way that it's been laid out to
Right.
be.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the way fundamentalists protect the Bible, though, even with Islam, you could make the case that that was a document written by a person.
Right.
The Bible's not.
Right.
The Greek word ta biblia, it's a group of, well, in the Protestant canon, it's 40 men who lived over a 1,500-year period, different parts of the world, who were speaking, or different parts of that part of
Right.
the world, who were speaking to different people groups for very specifically different reasons, who never read each other's text, and the fact that it confirms itself as much as it does is pretty extraordinary. But it's not a monolithic document
Right.
that's written by one person. And surely God had a bigger plan for creation than just writing a book and then being ticked off at everybody for not living up to it. I mean, really?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's who God is?
Especially since 2/3 of the world have either never seen a Bible or could not read it if they did.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's his major way of communicating with mankind, then he's an idiot.
Well,
Because
well,
that's
he's not
that's
been
not
very-
a really
No,
good
Right.
way,
And you-
because
and-
we don't know what books
And
are.
you ask people about that, and they don't know how to answer it.
Right.
They really don't.
Well, in the Old Testament prophets, their vision of the New Testament was the laws would be written on the hearts of the people.
Right.
You know,
That's
he
the
said
whole
that
new
no
covenant.
longer will you say know the Lord, for they'll all know him,
Yeah.
for the greatest to the least. So they weren't even thinking about it being on a document. To me, the very fact that Moses gets the Ten Commandments and on the first descent down the mountain they break,
Yeah.
then that's a very telling thing. Like the law, the thing that kills has intrinsically in it it's like a ticking time bomb. It's like it's supposed to self-destruct. That's why Paul said what the law could not do, and that it was weak through the flesh. God sending his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh condemns, etc. But he's basically saying it imploded so that you could know God on a personal basis. You could say even the Bible has become a fig leaf for a lot of people.
Yeah.
More people know the Bible than really know God, or
Right.
know the voice of God.
And fear is chaotic, and if we do believe that perfect love drives out fear, and where there is love there can't be fear, then evidently we haven't taught people how to love and how to understand love. So they're just operating in this mindset of fear and perception of fear, and then they start making up their own rules. You'll ask somebody, well, what if someone in the world never heard of the Bible or never heard of Jesus or experienced him in the same way that we have?
Right.
Oh, well, God will make an exception. What if somebody was a kid and
Right.
never experienced that doesn't know the
Then they bend
concept?
the rules.
Yeah, age of accountability. Like, can you show me the scripture for that? What if someone had a mental handicap and couldn't
Right.
understand the concept of Christ?
Which is amazing. They're being sticklers for the document,
Right.
where they're coming up with all these
Yeah,
rules.
that's the
outside
letter
document.
killing. That is the letter
just to
killing.
destroy that golden calf a little bit all the way. I'll just say that way. The funny thing about the story of Noah is that it was actually written 800 years before the book of Genesis. It was called the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Right.
If you really want to know the truth of that, that story was written
Well,
a
there's
long
that.
time before the Bible. I'm just saying.
You had to bring Gilgamesh to the table.
I mean,
right?
yeah, that's really what it's. I mean,
Right.
But the interesting thing about, I think, and I say this too, and I'm challenging another golden calf, and then people get weird when I say this, but I think you guys are probably hear me. I have read for years. I've read all the pros and cons of the Shroud of Turin. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it fraud? And then one day, it dawned on me the truth of that whatever it is, that shroud. Just by looking at the image, I realized that it was a fraud, and I'll tell you why. You take away all the carbon date testing, you take away all the debate and the scientific. Just look at the face.
Right.
That is the face. The hairstyle, everything. The features of the face it is what medieval people in England and in Europe thought
yeah.
Jesus looked like.
Right.
That's the
Well,
image.
that was the passed down from the one pope who had the son, and all the imagery of Jesus, if you look at the images of his son, all our Western imagery that we associate with who Jesus
Right.
is his son.
Right.
Yeah, that's the image or the golden calf people have
Right.
made. And so when you challenge that, when you challenge, the historical accuracy of the Bible, or you challenge, maybe it's more of a symbolic, whatever. You're challenging this golden calf they've drawn and they've made it themselves.
Right.
And I've seen people who aren't even Catholic furious with me about the Shroud of Turin, and I'm like, do you really think that Jesus had that hairstyle? You understand that was very prevalent in the Dark Ages. That's what people look like, and that's what people thought Jesus.
But not in Roman culture as much.
Right.
I'm pretty sure my son looks like Jesus. That's my son Levi.
It's funny. I don't know if you ever saw. Did you ever see that? You know who Molly Shannon is? Used to be on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
She did Mary Catherine Gallagher, and she did a movie called Superstar. And Superstar.
Love that movie.
And there was a scene where Will Ferrell appears to her, and he's dressed like Jesus.
Right.
And she says, "Well, who are you?" And he says, "I'm Mary Catherine's image of what God looks like." And I thought, now that's, I know it's a comedy movie, but you're really on to something there. Which begs the question, for those of us who are leading groups of people, if you know that, how do you keep people involved in a belief system that you yourself are challenging on a daily basis? How do you do it?
I tell them the devil's going to destroy their transmission. And now my transmission's going out. It's like, wow.
I mean, we're having to
don't know,
come up with a new
because
vernacular.
We really are, because I told a group of people in my church and leadership last week, I said, I don't believe in church anymore. I said, now this is hard for me to tell y'all this, but I don't believe in organized religion. I said, no, we have a building and we're going to continue to meet because I don't know what else to do. I said, but I believe that the wine I've been given can no longer be contained in this wineskin that we call the local church. I don't know what the next step is, but I told them I'm ready to take it, and it may take a year to figure that out or what.
Well, I believe that community, there are a few elements of church that are still relevant, like community, having some type of community, and that's not only found in church. People find that on soccer teams.
And that more people together can do
the
something that an
fellowship.
individual
Yeah, you're not
can't
going
do.
through life alone.
Yeah, that's-
also being able to encourage people, and as we said, if you're awakened, sometimes you start drifting off a little bit. You need a little shrug. My organization, ignitetheworld.org. Go check that out. Our whole concept is igniting people, and although I don't think your flame goes away, sometimes you need some gas thrown on there. Sometimes you need some fuel, and I think that that is what the next phase is figuring out how we can have a community of people who want to experience God or something bigger than themselves, and not go through life alone, and that can be taught or educated or drawn out from what's already inside them.
I think there's a whole generation of people out there who probably have some background in Judeo-Christian literature, and they've approached God through the concept of a church or whatever, that model does not work for them anymore. But there's something about it they want to still believe is valid. And that's one reason I'm doing this program, is trying to find where are those people. Because I don't want to argue with anybody. The reason I had you guys on is because we're kind of on the same page. I don't want to do a point counterpoint. I think you and I talked about this one time. You can win a biblical argument with somebody and they'll still say, well, you've proved it from the scriptures, but I still say,
Still believe this.
God hates gay people or whatever. So it's not really about the Bible. It ultimately, I think we said this in one of the earlier episodes, the saying, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. We don't read the Bible as it is. We read it as we are. And what becomes a challenge for those of us who are still, for lack of a better term, a pastor or whatever, is without the religion, how do you control the people?
Yeah.
Right.
You can't threaten them.
Well, there has been a movement of even like atheist churches that I've been seeing, which is interesting. At first, when I saw it, I was kind of.
Do they call themselves churches?
Yeah, and and those maybe they use the word assembly or something like that. But when I first saw it, it bugged me because I was like, dude, you're basically just jacking what we do and just take because basically it's church. They just took God out of it, and I'm wanting to do the opposite. I'm wanting to do God and just take church out of it. So how can we present God? Because God is love, and God is universe. God is big. God is larger than we can grasp and box in. But how can we present that to the world without the religion?
I think a lot of the way we approach it is because of coming from a Western culture. The idea of church and all of that is part of our heritage, and the meeting the way we do, and for anything that we have, it's all very much the same way, lined up, and there's somebody on a stage talking, whether it's a comedy show or a minister.
Right.
And I think that there's a certain part of that that's part of the sociological DNA of being a westernized person and the way we have it. And so I don't think there'll ever come a time where there isn't some kind of gathering, because that's the way our culture works in groups.
And don't you see, I even see this happening around this table, that where Jesus says, where two or more gather together in my name, there I am.
Right.
There is a synergy that I need you guys here to help me talk about this, because I can talk about it with you better than I can looking into a camera, because I can't say it all by myself. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, if you think about it, even in the scripture where it says the precious like faith, I think that's like that magnet that draws, call it law of attraction, call it spirit of God, but it draws those together that are being awakened. I mean, it's just what he did today was he recognized the awakening process of what's happening with us, so it's automatically going to draw us together. And I think we have been at a place in history where if I teach this to the people that what's really important is not the law of this and that we think they'll scatter. I don't think they will. I think that the spirit in me is going to draw the spirit in you. And like Mary and Elizabeth, something's going to attract us together to say we have something to talk about. And that's when the leaping took place. And here's the thing that I'm starting to teach on. Mary and Elizabeth, nothing leaped within her womb because they read a book. Or they was reading some Old Testament scripture. It leaped because they knew the attraction of a similar miracle and a sign and wonder was taking place here. And the cool thing about it is the miracles in both their bellies were not even the same way. I mean, one was supernatural but yet by her husband, but that same similarity attracted them to say, it's God, it's Yahweh. And so that's what I think. It's automatically going to happen when we move by faith and not by sight. It's going to automatically attract the buildings, as you say, that are the spiritual buildings that we are, and not a natural building.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
Well, our church is called The Bridge because we live under a bridge.
No, you don't. You have a beautiful building.
That's right. I live in a Sunday school room. But our church is called The Bridge because I wanted to bridge between us church people and that group of people that that we do connect with inside, but we've not been allowed to because our religion has not allowed us to talk to the New Age people. It's not allowed us to talk to the Eastern religion, all the people that actually are way ahead of us in some things.
And
so we need to bridge
Or
between
even
us
not
and them.
not even just the other faith-based communities, but like the scientific community. Like when you look in quantum physics and all these people who are confirming things that we believe by the Spirit.
Well, that's why I started doing events in bars and clubs, because there's a certain amount of people that are just not going to make it under a steeple. So you have to reach them where they're at, and that's not always beating them over the head with the Bible. That's just going in and showing them how the love of God works, and showing them that you can help people and be nice and be kind. And when you do that, I think they're going to see ultimately God.
But you know what's amazing to me is how the scripture talks about that he was made flesh and dwelt among us. We've not put the emphasis on that. We're too busy putting the emphasis on a book.
He was not made paper.
Exactly. And yet if he's the firstborn among many brethren, hello, then who are we? Cornflakes? I mean, we're the embodiment of God behind the God that walked the earth. And so if you look at this and you tell religion to say we're demigods, it would freak out. But in actuality, we are.
Well, that's exactly what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
That's why in John 10, Jesus actually reminded the people, because they said, how dare you call yourself the Son of God? He said, what are you talking about? He quotes the Psalms back to them, and he says, your own scripture says, have I not said that you're gods, even though you will die like men? So he was talking about human beings. And even, this is too good. We're going to have to, I think this is a three-parter, like... the Star Wars trilogy.
Star Wars trilogy.
It'll be way bigger.
We have a prequel. That's my question.
Because I think this is so necessary to talk about. Because I keep finding people who want to believe in God, and they definitely believe in love. They do not believe in what modern church has devolved into. And because now, depending on some external labels about you, church has become this whole other thing. Christianity has nearly become a political party now,
right?
And that's not what that's not what it was supposed to be. Let's put a comma right there. We're going to pick this up where we left off next time. Thank you for being with us on In the Now with Jim Swilley.